just wonder whether United are playing a little bit of poker here only because they know the financial situation that Everton are in and a lot of other clubs are in as well. With INEOS coming in, there's going to be a particular focus on how they do these transfers.
Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and this is a one-on-one transfer interview with Sky Sports News reporter Dharmesh Sheth. Dharmesh, it is great to have you back on the channel and hopefully there'll actually be some transfers in this transfer window.
You was on every week in January, Joe. Thanks for having me back. And we didn't really have much to talk about. And I know a lot of people were saying, oh, he doesn't know anything. Why don't we just sign someone? Well, PSR, unfortunately, dictated a lot of what clubs were doing, not least United. And I think everyone was keeping their powder dry for the summer. But I still think there'll still be financial implications into what clubs can do, particularly if they can't sell players before June the 30th going into the new financial year. But it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you were right. We were sat here going, probably not a lot going to happen. And not a lot did happen. So you were proven right in the end. Hopefully, there will be more happening this summer. There's been bids for people, if reports are to be believed. There's reports of multiple different positions that United are looking for. I expect, and I just want to hear you say it. Do you think there'll be transfers in the summer transfer window?
100%.
Yes, that's 100%. You can't get higher than that.
Because it's 100%.
Okay, great. Well, that's brilliant. Let's start with United's sort of overall vision then, and let's have a look at sort of some of the priority positions, and we can go through the individuals within those positions. So starting up, centre-back seems to be a clear and obvious position that United are keen in. Like I said before, already reports of a bid for Jarrad Branthwaite. What's the latest on that, and what do you make of that situation?
Yeah, it certainly appears that the central defence is the priority position for Manchester United this summer. A number of reasons for that. You've already seen Raphael Varane leave the football club, or about to leave when his contract expires this summer. All of the injuries that Manchester United suffered last season, I don't think they want to go through another season where, I mean, at last count, I think it was like 15 centre-back partnerships. Yeah. It's completely unsustainable to get a successful season when you've had that many different centre-back partnerships. So they want to strengthen in that area. Jarrad Branthwaite is one of the primary targets. That is clear. We understand that United have made a bid. It's quite a low ball bid compared to what Everton want. Everton want in the region of around £70 million. I think United went in with a fee worth in total of around £40 million, which was always going to be rejected by Everton. I think what United are doing, though, they have got a lot of targets in that area. They do want to bring in Jarrad Branthwaite, that is clear, but they will move to these other targets if Everton do not bring that asking price down. I just wonder whether United are playing a little bit of poker here only because they know the financial situation that Everton are in and a lot of other clubs are in as well with regard to profit and sustainability rules. So I just wonder whether United are trying to get a deal done that perhaps is lower than what Everton would ideally want. But they will move on to other targets, United, if Everton don't bring that price down. And those other targets, they include Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace, currently with the England squad as well. Jean-Clair, Todibo. There's been a long-standing interest in him, and there's that interesting link-up, isn't there? INEOS, of course, owners at Nice, and now minority owners at Manchester United as well. And then a young player from Lille who it's been floating around in the last couple of weeks as well, Leny, Yoro. But it seems at the moment that Branthwaite would be the primary target, but the price would definitely have to be right.
Yeah, there was reports last night, I believe, that United were willing to walk away if they were deemed to be having to pay this United tax for players like Branthwaite, and obviously that bid was made, excuse me, and rejected. Do you think that United is not necessarily keen to sort of make a show of that, but do you think that there's part of INEOS that want to sort of differentiate themselves from the previous regime by almost saying, actually, we're going to take the step, instead of doing what you did with Frankie de Jong a couple of seasons ago and being dragged along all year, we'll make a couple of bids for Branthwaite. If it doesn't work, we'll back off. Do you think they're almost, not keen to do that, but sort of very willing to do that?
You would like to think that would be the approach this time. They haven't been brought in to oversee football operations for nothing.
Yeah.
That is an admission that the Glazers have got it wrong in the past 10 or 15 years. Simple as that, because they've accepted not only a minority investment of 25%, but also the handing over of football operations. So you would think INEOS will approach this transfer window very precisely. So already we're talking about, the window just opening and a bid already having gone in, albeit a really low one. But the fact is, it looks like a primary target. And I think that if United are finding, look, Everton simply aren't going to budge close enough to what United would want to pay for someone like Branthwaite, then it feels like that they would be prepared to walk away quicker than they have done in the past. And with these other names that are around, that would suggest, look, they're not just looking at one player. The other issues that they do have there as well is that Victor Lindelof is entering the final year of his contract. So when you do get to that position, it's one of those sell or renew situations. Be interesting to see what happens there. There's been even talk that maybe Victor Lindelof, could they maybe use Lindelof in any kind of potential deal for Branthwaite? We'll have to wait and see if that would materialise. And Johnny Evans as well. His contract is up, but they have already said that they are in talks with Johnny Evans and his representatives over a new one-year deal at Old Trafford. That would represent, once again, a bit more experience in there, but I'm sure United would want to bring in one, if not two, central defenders in this window.
Just on a couple of those other targets then, there's been sort of reports that United aren't going to have a list of, favourite and then, we're not so keen, even less keen. It's almost more of a lateral way of looking at targets where we have 4 people who we are willing to buy, and whichever one we can get the best deal for, whoever's, we'll go for that one. Is that what you're hearing as well?
That certainly seems the way as well, because with INEOS coming in, there's going to be a particular focus on how they do these transfers. So it will be a case, whereas before you had that situation when the manager looked like he had quite a lot of control about who came into the club, which has proved to be unsustainable, hence why INEOS have come in. I think what INEOS want to do, they want to recruit properly. So we're always talking about the manager for the whole of the summer. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Yes, that was an important issue for Manchester United, but I think more important for United just now is getting the structure above the manager right and the playing staff below the manager right as well. Because if they get both of those correct, then if the manager doesn't work, it's going to be very easy to get rid of a manager compared to trying to get rid of 5, 6, 7 players who are on £200,000 a week and on long-term contracts, which has been proven to be a real Achilles heel for United in the past few years. Because every single summer, or every time they change a manager, the new manager wants new players, which is his right. But I think they have to do it differently this time. Yes, even if Erik ten Hag wants these players, yes, he will have a say on who will be coming into Manchester United, but more of a say will go to the recruitment team, Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox, and eventually you'd expect Dan Ashworth as well.
I think that's crucial as well, isn't it? Because like you said, we've had so many managers come in who the first 2 years of their tenure has been trying to sort of undo some of the, maybe not mistakes, but differences in opinion of the previous manager, getting rid of this type of player, bringing in that type of player. And by the time, we've spent a few £100 million and we've tried to clear a few players in and out, then that manager's been sacked. Like, it's been this constant cycle of trying to get rid of players who don't suit systems. Yeah.
They seem to be playing catch up, Joe. If you think about when Sir Alex Ferguson was in charge, he was alongside David Gill, and Manchester United had that, that structure whereby the manager and the chief executive were effectively running the club. And they thought, when Sir Alex Ferguson left, this is how football clubs are run. This is the easy way to do it. This is simple. He's done it, so let's just bring in a manager who's going to be, and a chief executive who's going to do the same thing. While all of that was happening, the rest of the clubs, Liverpool's, Manchester City's, Arsenal's, all of these other clubs were thinking of ways of closing the gap to Manchester United. And now they've not only closed the gap, they've overtaken them, because they've decided, right, we need this European structure in place. Let's get the chief executive, let's get a sporting director, let's get a technical director, let's get the recruitment team all in place. They can be the main driver behind what the recruitment is going to be, and the main driver behind who the manager is going to be, because not only will they have the biggest say on who plays for the football club, they will then pick a manager who will be able to manage the players that are there rather than the other way around. Because everything that's happened in the past 10, 15 years, I don't like these players. Give me 200 million. And that's been the cycle. That's the stop.
It's not a healthy cycle at all, is it? And let's move on we'll go to midfielders in a minute, but let's talk about forwards a little bit, because there's a lot of ins mentioned and a lot of outs as well, maybe the most significant in terms of actual transfer fees, with the likes of Mason Greenwood and Jadon Sancho obviously seeming like they could well leave the club. In terms of ins though, Elise seems to be a name that's been mentioned a lot. I know he's fancied by Chelsea as well, and there seemed to be sort of a quick kind of get to this point where teams are interested. There's this sort of £60 million fee that they'd have to pay, and then it seems to have gone quiet for the last sort of 10 days or so. What's your understanding with Elise in particular, but then United's interest in a forward generally?
Well, United definitely are interested in Michael Elise. There is talk of a release clause. There's been different reports on how big that release clause is. They've also got that situation at the moment where we understand that they are listening to offers for Jadon Sancho. They've decided that that's it, that they don't want to keep Jadon Sancho anymore. There's too much water that's passed under the bridge with regard to that situation. And it looks like around a 40 million price tag that they're looking for. And even though there are clubs interested in Sancho, like Borussia Dortmund and Juventus, it's our understanding that they can't even afford to pay even that much money. So that is going to be a situation that United are going to have to keep an eye on and try and get done as quickly as possible to be able to move on and recruit in that position, because you can't see a situation where Sancho will stay and they'll still have enough money available to get in a player of the ilk of someone like Michael Elise. But definitely there is that interest, and definitely they want to sell Jadon Sancho. That is very, very clear now. As far as the forward positions go, they are looking at Joshua Zirkzee, who they've had quite a long-standing interest in as well. There was talk of him last summer and in January as well from Bologna. And I think United are thinking about this forward position really carefully, actually, because they want to help Rasmus Højlund, because he didn't get any help last season. He came in from a league that wasn't the Premier League as a 20-year-old kid and expected to shoulder the responsibility of goal scoring at Manchester United straight away. I personally think he had a good season, and there's enough potential there for United fans to be excited about what Rasmus Højlund can do. So the reason I think that United have got to be careful what they're going to do with that forward position, because they do need to recruit not only to help him, but also when Rasmus Højlund is off form or he needs a rest, they can come in. But does it need an experienced striker to come in who maybe will be willing to come into the team and in the squad and play that role, knowing that Højlund is going to be the first choice? Or do they bring in someone, a young player like a Zirkzee, and say, go head-to-head competition with Rasmus Højlund? I mean, there's both ways, you can, there are benefits and there are negatives for, but I think United are going to have to think about that one long and hard, about how they actually recruit in that area, because they don't want to stunt the development of Rasmus Højlund, but at the same time, they want to help him because they know that he needs it.
Yeah, and just to touch on Mason Greenwood, obviously it's a very sort of delicate situation, and there's reports of United extending his contract in order to get more money from him, but then that's fraught with sort of question marks around the sort of morality of giving someone extra time at the club when he's leaving for the reasons that he's leaving. What's your understanding of his situation? Because I think this will be going into the last year of his contract, unless United were to sort of do that optional extension. There are clubs who seem to be interested, but then reports of Juventus looking at him, but then fans maybe having a bit of backlash once they found out the extent of the sort of rumours around Mason Greenwood. What do you think's going on there? And are you sure that United will get rid of him or sell him, should I say?
I mean, look, it seems like it's the same situation with Jadon Sancho, that they will be listening to offers for Mason Greenwood, and they will be listening to offers for Jadon Sancho. For both players, the information we have is that there are German clubs and Italian clubs, and multiple German clubs and Italian clubs, who would be interested in these two players. It's just whether Manchester United can get the price that they want, because not only will they want to, have them out of the club, they want to do it in a way whereby they don't want to lose too much money on these players. Yeah. Greenwood, of course, would be a pure profit, but you could see already, if we're talking about 40 million for Sancho, that's already almost half, what they paid for Jadon Sancho just a few seasons ago. So with both of those players, yes, listening to offers, they'll want the right price for them because they want to recruit in those areas as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. And like you said, we've sort of got to a point where it's kind of widely understood that neither of these players will play for United again. I know they could, but like that seems to be the will of the club, is for them to both leave. And yet there's no kind of concrete interest, in all the teams who have been reportedly interested don't really have a lot of cash available. Like, we're just sort of waiting for a new team to come along, or someone in Saudi maybe, where people have got a bit more money to spend to actually take these players off United's hands. But it doesn't look particularly likely at the moment.
It's early. It's early.
It is early.
It's only 4 days in.
That's true. In my head, the season ended and the transfer window exploded into life. But actually, like you said, it opened 4 days ago. So there's a long time to go yet, of course. Let's look at midfield a little bit then, because I mentioned obviously a bid from Saudi there. Casemiro is a huge name that's been mentioned in terms of outs. There does seem to be genuine interest from Saudi Arabia, which I know it always feels weird and slightly sort of abrupt to just say Saudi Arabia, but then the government does control multiple teams, so it is. I think that is sort of the fairest way to put it. But is that interest there, and are United keen to sell Casemiro after, what was a pretty poor end to the season, or season in general for him, wasn't it?
So the situation with him, we know he's under a long-term contract still. Yeah. He's on big money. We know that. They do like Casemiro at United. Erik ten Hag does like Casemiro. So I haven't been given the information that, with like the situation you've got with Jadon Sancho, where the information we're getting is we are listening to offers for this guy. That doesn't seem to be as blatant with Casemiro. However, if a bid was to come in which turned United's head, then of course it would be considered. But I think you can say that with every player. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that, because it's also going to dictate potentially what kind of moves United would make in midfield as well. Because look, we all forget Mason Mount was injured for almost the entire season, and whether anyone thinks he was a good signing or not, it doesn't look like a good signing just now, but that's because of his injuries. But we can't judge Mason Mount on his playing ability yet, because we haven't seen him. It could be that old cliche, it'll be like a new signing. It'll be interesting to see that when Mason Mount is fully fit and he's got the next preseason behind him and he can stay injury free, the kind of role he's going to play at Manchester United, and whether he can save United an amount of that money. Because as much as Casemiro was criticised last season, you've got that situation where he was injured for almost half that season as well. He was in and out of the squad. I'm sure that maybe Erik ten Hag might have had it in his head. Well, you've got a situation here where Casemiro is very important with what he does, but we understand we need legs around him. Mason Mount would have represented one of those players that could have helped someone like Casemiro. But when I look back on that season at United, I don't know about you, I have not seen injuries like it. I know a lot of clubs will turn around and say, look, every club has injuries, but the key areas that United seemed to be hit with injuries in was extraordinary. I mean, we're looking at Kobbie Mainoo now, and kind of in inverted commas burst onto the scene halfway through last season. Well, Erik ten Hag's plan was to start him at the start of the season, because he was playing in pre-season. He was playing against Real Madrid when he got that bad injury. So it was all set for Kobbie Mainoo to come into the team straight away, alongside maybe a Casemiro, alongside maybe a Mason Mount. But they weren't given that opportunity because at different times and for lengthy times, all three of them were injured. And that's not even talking about what happened in the defence. But having said that, yes, every club does get injuries. But I think that's one of the reasons as well that United will want to look and strengthen in every single area of that pitch. And that's what INEOS will be doing, because as much as they will say, yes, mitigating factors for Erik ten Hag were the injuries and what happened with the squad last season, you got to try and put your finger on why there were so many injuries as well. Was it just luck, or was it something to do with how they're how they're training and their preparation? So I think they're going to have to look at all of that as well when they look at recruitment. Just one other area I would talk about is the right back area, and that is potentially an area that United could look at as well. And the reason I say that is that Aaron Wan-Bissaka has entered the final year of his contract. And like Lindelof, like I said, when they get to that area, you're talking about sell or renew. Now, if United decide to keep him and they decide the right back is not the priority position because they've got so many other areas to strengthen first, then maybe talks can happen between both parties and an extension of a contract to potentially happen. Or they could just say, no, you're staying and you can leave for free next summer, which ideal scenario they wouldn't want to do. Or if they get offers for him, maybe they'll consider those offers and then go into the market to try and bring in a right back.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's difficult, should I say, with the Wan-Bissaka situation because he's a pretty decent alternative to Dalot, but they aren't like each other. So you sort of he's not much an alternative as much as he is he's not much a replacement as much as he is an alternative. So if you've got someone like a Doku in the FA Cup final, you probably want Wan-Bissaka over Dalot 1v1 for a player like that. But if Dalot was injured for 2 months, you can't get the same output and build-up play from Wan-Bissaka as you can from Dalot. So maybe United are looking for maybe a more Dalot-like fullback to replace Wan-Bissaka than just having him as a sort of rotation. Just back into midfield for a second. Neves is a name that's been mentioned a handful of times. Benfica, young midfielder, looks very exciting, sort of can do a bit of everything, robust, good on the ball, tackler, gets goals occasionally as well. United rumoured to be interested in him, but there's this 120 million, 100 million, somewhere in that region, release clause that Benfica seem to be insisting on. Is United interest in him genuine, and do you think that, that sort of release clause will just completely obliterate any chance we have of actually signing him?
Yes, that's interesting. I mean, he's definitely a player that United will be looking at. He fits the profile of what United would want to bring in with this new look United and this new look structure that United have got.
Yep.
Now, Benfica have actually said that there's been no approach from United. There were reports that there were talks between the clubs. They say that is categorically false. There has been no approach from Manchester United. Now, there wouldn't need to be an approach from Manchester United if they just went out and met the release clause, because then Benfica can't do anything about it, because then it becomes the player's decision whether he wants to go and talk to Manchester United. But as you mentioned, you can't see a situation at the moment, particularly with the finances going around in football, where Manchester United will be triggering a release clause that is in excess of £100 million. Hence why, if they do want to negotiate that release clause, they would have to approach Benfica and say, we don't want to pay that much money. We want to bring down that release clause. But Benfica, they've publicly said that there's been no approach from Manchester United. That's not to say that there wouldn't be an interest from United. It's just whether they would be able to do any kind of deal of that magnitude for that amount of money. It'd be questionable, but it wouldn't be for the want of not wanting a player. It would just be because of the finances of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much going on, and obviously you've got the Euros playing a role for a lot of these names that we've mentioned. Elise, I think, is at the Olympics with France as well, so that's going on at the same time as it always does when the Euros are on. There's a lot of moving parts this summer. Is just a sort of an extra question. Is there a feeling in INEOS that, I know they've worked at Nice for a few years, and I think Lausanne before that. Is there a feeling of, wow, this is a big job we've got on our hands here. Bigger budget, bigger pressure. We've got to get rid of some bigger names, the likes of Sancho and Casemiro and Mason Greenwood. These are the kind of fees and situations and players of a magnitude they've not really dealt with before. Do you think, this is obviously just your opinion, but do you think they're kind of sat there going, wow, we've got a lot to do here. This is a big job that we've taken on here?
I don't think they're surprised, no, because
good.
They would have gone in. You're not going to be spending that much money to get a 25% stake and control of football operations if you weren't aware of exactly the job that is in front of them. And they've already said, haven't they, this is going to take 3 years. And I think some United fans were, 3 years, you can't wait that long. We need something done immediately. I actually think 3 years, that is, I'm saying realistic, that is, it could be a little bit optimistic, because it looks like there's so much that needs doing at that club because of everything that has happened before. So not only are they having to repair 10 years of effective mismanagement, they're having to look forward and not only recruit, but it seems to me now they have to hit the jackpot on every single transfer that they make and every single out that they make. and every bit of money that they make on transfers. There's no room for error, it doesn't feel like, anymore. You've got these other clubs who've established themselves now, Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal, and if they make a mistake in the transfer window, there are 2 or 3 other big successes that can override any kind of perceived failure that they might have had in the window. Whereas United, at the moment, it feels like they're not in that position. It feels like they're in the position that maybe Arsenal were 3 or 4 years ago when Arteta took over the job, and how big a job that was. But they decided then, the only way this is going to work is we've got to get this recruitment team right. We've got to get Edu and Arteta working together. Arteta is the long-term project. Let's move forward. It feels those kind of vibes are happening at United just now as well. They're trying to get that recruitment team sorted. They're trying to get the sporting director sorted. And they're effectively saying Erik ten Hag, you know, with this talk of a contract extension, is the guy that's going to lead us forward as well.
Yeah, we need to flip the sort of the ratio of successful transfers to unsuccessful ones, don't we? Because at the minute, it's for every Bruno Fernandes, there's a Jadon Sancho, there's, you know, an Anthony or whatever. Whereas you look at City, and for every Calvin Phillips, there's an Erling Haaland and you know, and a Kanji. It's the other way around, isn't it? 3/4 successful, 1/4 not.
Yeah.
United are struggling to find a quarter of success.
You go every week, so or you watch them a lot closely than I do. I mean, the question I would ask, flip to you, would be, when you look at the post-Fergie era and you look at the recruitment, how many successes have there been, like bona fide successes that have come in? You mentioned Bruno Fernandes.
He's definitely one. I think for the
you
could
age, argue Lisandro. You could argue Lisandro Martinez. He's had a few injuries, but you could see that United are a better team when he plays.
Yeah. I mean, again, Luke Shaw probably just about. I know he's had a lot of injuries, but he's been good. I think Juan Mata's kind of probably a yes, but also we never quite got the Chelsea Juan Mata that, you know, was getting 25 assists a season. I mean, yeah, maybe Zlatan, but that first season was incredible. That was definitely a success, and then the rest of it not so much. There's a lot of questions in there, and I mean, I'm thinking through. There must be a couple more I'm forgetting, but in terms of true, proper success stories, Bruno is the only one where you go 100%, definitely. All fans would agree this was a brilliant transfer, and everyone else, either the jury's still out, or, you know, people will disagree. So it's been pretty rough, hasn't it? It has been pretty rough, but hopefully this summer can be the start of things going in the other direction rather than being where they have been for so long. But Dharmesh, thank you for coming on. We're going to get you back on, obviously, throughout the window to give us those updates on these players, and maybe new players as well who come into the fray. Potentially a good Euros for someone here or there might spark a twinkle in the eye of Jim Ratcliffe when we go for someone else. But thank you very much for joining us. And just finally, before you go, obviously, I know you said you expect United to make transfers this summer. Do you think that this will be, I don't want to say INEOS sort of stamping their imprint on United, but do you think they see this as a really big moment for them? I know you said before they won't be overawed by the situation, but are they thinking about their own PR and how they come across this window? Because this is a huge moment for them as far as fans are concerned. We need to look at INEOS and see that they can do things that the Glazers couldn't do.
100%. 100%. They would definitely be looking at that, and this is their first window. So they're going to have to send that message to the fans that, look, you're in safe hands. We know what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. And so, you know, a lot of people will argue that, you know, the way that the Erik ten Hag situation was handled, which was the first big thing that they had to try and do with regard to, you know, the management and the recruitment side at Manchester United, has it been handled well? Some people will argue no. Some people will argue yes, because look, at the end of the day, yes, United won the FA Cup, but they finished 8th. So question mark should have been there for Erik ten Hag. Yes, they should have looked for another manager, and they didn't find one. So they're stuck with Erik ten Hag. It's not an ideal situation, but now that's been decided. So wherever the rights and wrongs are about it, the message from them will be, we're moving forward with Erik ten Hag. Let's get this transfer window up and running, and let's get the players we don't want at the club out of the club, get good money, and let's explore what we can bring in this transfer window.
Very exciting. Right, Dharmesh, thank you for joining us. Like I said, you'll be back throughout the transfer window, bringing us those updates. Thank you to everyone at home for joining us as well. This has been a one-on-one interview with Dharmesh Sheth, reporter from Sky Sports News. We'll see you in a bit.